Hi, everybody. This is Gary Van Antwerp from Training Magazine Network. I want to welcome you to today's session, How the Digital Skills Gap is Killing Your Team's Productivity, and most importantly, what you can do about it. Our guest speaker today is from Grovo, and he is the learning expert in residence there. His name is Alex Kurgan, and we're going to turn things over to Alex in just a couple of minutes here. I do have a little bit of information for you because, as you know, Training Magazine and Training Magazine Network are ramping up for the online learning conference. It'll be in Chicago, where Mary Lou and some of the others of you are. I think Sarah is there as well. That's coming up next month, as you can see here. You can save $200 on registration by using this discount code, TMN2. If you haven't registered yet, you really should come. This event has been getting better and better. And you can learn all about it, download the conference schedule and so forth by going to onlinelearningconference.com. So we have a couple of introductory webinars or preview webinars where we are allowing you to meet and hear what they have to say, what their ideas are on certain topics. And Kevin Thorne is one of them. He'll be speaking at the OLC, and he'll be talking about Storyline as well as other technologies for developing learning, online learning. And this session, 10 Things Every Storyline Developer Wants to Know, is a session he's going to do for us next Thursday so that you can get to know Kevin and his thoughts on his topics. And then in addition to that, Dr. Ray Jimenez has added a session on the 28th that is going to be how to use story-based learning to improve learners' performance. So pardon me, that's Thursday, and Kevin will be on Tuesday. Join us for both, and you won't have to worry about it. So go to onlinelearningconference.com to learn more about the conference itself, and we hope you can be, yeah, exactly. Robin, you're correct. Kevin's will be on Tuesday and Ray will be on Thursday. Okay, and then this one you don't know about because registration just opened this morning. In fact, no one has registered yet because nobody knew. So you can be the first. The Kirkpatricks are going to be doing part 2 of the session they did. We had them do back in June. I kind of badgered Jim and went into doing another session, a follow-up, because everybody was so enthusiastic and positive about the June session. So you can listen to the recording of that and then join us on December 16th for part 2. This is going to be a very interactive conversation with the Kirkpatricks. That's one way it's going to be different, and it's going to be more about how to apply and less about the theory of moving beyond training order taking. So we hope you can join us for that, and I'll give you a link here for all the upcoming webinars. We just posted about 9 new ones that are on the schedule that I haven't even mentioned. So maybe you copy that using Control-C and check it out after today's webinar, okay? You can find out all about those very easily by just going to trainingmagnetwork.com. Sarah, you know this, right? And in the right-hand corner of trainingmagnetwork.com, just click on whatever you'd like to see, the free white paper archive, the recordings, or the calendar of the upcoming webinars, okay? So we hope to see you join us there. Right now, I want to turn your attention to this webinar, and we want to thank, we have a new partner in underwriting today's webinar, and that is Grovo. We hope you'll visit grovo.com/organization, see down here in the right-hand corner. Go to that link, and I'll give that to you in the chat in a little bit, to learn more about what Alex is going to be talking about today. Okay, so again, today's session, how the digital skills gap is killing your team's productivity and what you can do about it. Our guest speaker is Alex Kurgan, learning expert in residence at Grovo. Alex, welcome to Training Magazine Network. We're very happy to have you here. Thank you.
I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Gary.
Great. Well, I'll turn it over to you, and we look forward to hearing everything you have to say.
Great, thanks. Hi, everyone. My name is Alex Kurgan. I'm the Creative Director and a Learning Specialist in Residence here at Grovo. So my background is in philosophy and educational testing, and at Grovo I help implement what we call a learner-first training method into our cloud-based training platform. So our mission at Grovo is to deliver the best performance results in the shortest time, whether that's with our training material or yours. So we have a hopefully fun, interactive, informative session ahead of us. But before we get into this thorny problem of the skills gap, I'd like to get a sense of how we feel about new technologies in this room. So please take about 30 seconds and indicate which of these images you most identify with when it comes to new technology. Do you feel overwhelmed, exhausted, elated. A lot of people here are elated. Okay, that's good to see.
So we have about half of everybody using the chat and the other half using the polling tool. I just want to remind everybody that you can use the polling tool up to that A at the top of your participant list that will be able to include you in the tabulated results. Looks like most people have answered. Alex, do you want me to go ahead and show you the results?
Yes, please do.
All right, sir. There you go.
Okay, excellent. All right, so it seems like we have a plurality of elation here. I'm in your camp as well. Elation leads to adoption of new technologies, which actually might be accelerating our productivity crisis. So let's take a look. So we're currently in the midst of a pretty serious productivity crisis. So some of you may have felt this personally. Maybe you felt like you've been trying to squeeze out more work in an ever-diminishing amount of time. Perhaps you're adopting a bunch of new technologies and you find that you don't really have enough time to learn them all fully and to become truly productive. And so what we mean by productivity here and what the Bureau of Labor Statistics means is broadly it's the rate of output per unit of input, so just the amount of work produced over time. And at the macro level, in the US alone, productivity has actually been decelerating for the past decade. In fact, productivity growth is at its lowest level since the 1950s. And yet we're in the midst of this digital revolution, right? So where's our productivity boost? Where's our life of leisure that we were promised in the movies where people showed us a vision of the future, everyone was flying around in jetpacks and didn't have to work so much. So let's take a look. So the irony seems to be that our productivity problem is being caused and accelerated by the digital revolution. So because technology is advancing at such a rapid pace, training can't really keep up. And even tech-savvy people can't keep up in some cases if the technology is advancing fast enough. So consider, for example, we can talk about really any role in an office, but consider the day-to-day tasks of someone in marketing today versus even 5 years ago when already we were in the midst of the internet era. So whereas even just 5 years ago, a marketer's job might have been a little bit more qualitative, they were thinking a lot about which messages will work for which buyers, they were working a lot with individual vendor platforms such as Facebook and Twitter. Now, marketers are expected to use marketing automation software and social media management tools and social monitoring tools. And the job is a lot more quantitative. So just by virtue of a shift in technology that has taken just a couple of years, a marketer's job has changed completely. And in fact, Deloitte, which is a research institution, they estimate that there's a skills half-life of about 2.5 years for any given role. So that means that you might be completely competent right now, but within 2.5 years, the technology will advance to such an extent that you might not be really able to perform your job at all unless you're continually training on that new technology. So this is such a big issue that governments are starting to take notice. So I don't know, some of you may have noticed in The Guardian yesterday, there was an article about how the UK government might need to intervene to bridge the skills gap. But government resolution is probably going to take too long, so it's up to the people in this room right now and other learning professionals like you to address this problem head-on in each of your organizations. So before we get into the meat of this, I want to do a little bit of story time. So I'd like for you to please share in the chat a time when a lack of skills turned a productivity saver into a productivity killer. So you might have been adopting a new technology, expected it to boost productivity, but it ended up limiting your productivity. And note, the book that's pictured is one of those rare ones full of horror stories for adults. This book tends not to scare children, but does scare us adults. We have a couple for SharePoint. Wow, a lot of people have trouble with SharePoint. Yeah, at Grovo, actually, so we a few months ago purchased some marketing automation software. Expected it to do great things, but we didn't have the internal expertise to use it, and it took a long time for us to implement it. Wow, I feel like a SharePoint representative should be in this chat. Okay, thank you, Gary. Do you want to put one of those up on the screen?
I can. Let's see.
Yeah, your choice. Anything?
We'll take Lisa's comment here.
Sure.
And I hope that one will do.
Great. SharePoint is only as good as those who implement, and training is key. I think that's exactly correct. The marketing automation software that we bought, because we didn't have the right training for a few months, it ended up that we had a hole in our marketing operations. That had we had the right training and the automation software was in place, it would have genuinely boosted productivity. But instead, it made us much less productive than we'd been in the previous months. So it's interesting. It's good to hear that we have this solidarity. We all have our horror stories, but I think more often than not, the digital skills gap is more insidious. It's a little quieter. So the skills gap that the media talks about and focuses on is the one that exists between the skills required to fill certain unfilled jobs and the skills that the unemployed have. Whereas the skills gap that we're talking about today is the one that's quietly happening in each of your organizations right now. It's the one in which there's a gap between someone's optimal performance and productivity if they really knew all of the tools they were working with, if they had all of the soft skills and operations in place to execute tasks with those tools and so forth. So let's take a look at, before we take a look at how much that's costing us, I just want to emphasize to what extent everyone is encountering this problem right now. So you are not alone. So what do all of these organizations have in common? We have a pretty wide array here. A medical marijuana dispensary in Vancouver, a discotheque in Amsterdam, marketing agency in New York, and a school in New Hampshire. Super church in Texas. Well, as it happens, they all bought Grovo within a single week recently this summer. The digital skills gap hits everyone. And, it hits everyone to the extent, the reason for that is that 84% of the American workforce uses a computer or a smart device for work. That percentage is pretty similar or higher across the world in developed nations. So the skills gap, it's a worldwide challenge and it's growing prominent each year. Let's take a look at how much it's costing us. So the IDC estimates that each individual loses about 21% of their total productivity due to inadequate digital skills. And there have been similar estimates from other research groups such as McKinsey. So overall, on the macro level, this waste drives about a $1.3 trillion loss to the U.S. economy. And to put that in terms that you can identify with more, that's about $10 million annual loss per 1,000 employees. And as I was saying, what's so insidious about this skills gap is that it's a quiet killer. Suboptimal use of digital tools becomes part of day-to-day operations, and then it gets really hard to notice. So what are we to do to stem the tide of lost productivity? Well, at Grovo, we've developed this framework to talk about digital skills and to get people started on closing the skills gap in their own organizations. So these are the 8 core digital skills required to be successful both today and in the future in the digital workplace. This model is going to continually grow as the skills required grow. Through this model, Grovo or you within your own organization can identify skills gaps and provide a professional development path for closing them. So note that we don't yet go into the more specific skills that are needed for different roles, such as social media, online marketing, sales, and so forth. But the thing that I think is special about these 8 is that these are the core skills that are relevant to every digital worker regardless of their role. And by digital worker, we mean anyone who uses a computer or smart device for work, which probably describes almost the entirety of the workforce that you folks are dealing with. So let me just give you a brief overview of these, and then we can discuss them, and we'll take a break to ask questions. So working with documents, project collaboration and management, attention management, that is mindfulness, good workflow habits, etc. Communication, which encompasses email and other forms of digital communication. Digital etiquette, search and research. Platform flexibility. By that we mean general fluency with different devices, operating systems, browsers, cloud platforms, and then security and privacy. Now, before we go into more detail about each of these skills, does anyone have any questions about what we've discussed thus far?
And I don't have any questions in quite yet, Alex, but I have a feeling some are coming right now. We might want to stop again in a minute or two after you cover another slide or two. Well, here we go.
Sure.
You know what Julie wants to know, what is attention management?
So attention management is quite literally the competency of being able to manage your attention depending on what different tasks you have to do during a day, or what kind of role you have at work. We'll get into this more. Yeah, focus is one element of attention management. Also, just being able to prioritize your attention in advance, setting attention as a precious resource. We'll actually discuss each of these in more detail. But it's gotten to the point in the digital world where we have to have training specifically on attention because it is such a precious resource now. Okay. If we don't have any more questions, again, we'll describe digital etiquette, and then we can take one more. So digital etiquette encompasses, you might have heard this referred to as web etiquette or netiquette. This is basically the rules of the road when you're using digital devices. So on social media, through email, and other venues online. Okay. Let's move on and talk about the individual skills, and we'll have more time for questions later. So let's talk about working with documents first, and we'll talk about how each one of these skills is costing your organization money. So working with documents, this entails formatting documents, storing them, sharing them, collaborating on them, and so forth. The IDC, the International Data Corporation, did a study and determined that organizations are losing about $20,000 per employee every year due to time wasted dealing with document challenges. And we at Grovo actually commissioned a poll by Harris Interactive and found that most professionals are using technology from 2 generations ago, including loading files onto CDs to share documents with coworkers, rather than, say, using cloud-based document sharing tools. And this seems like working with documents isn't such a big part of many workers' days, but even the time that is spent is very often used inefficiently. So I'd like to take a quick poll, and please answer in the chat. What is your favorite project management tool? So there are a lot of tools in this space. Grovo has used Asana, Trello. We're moving over to Jira. I personally have installed or started using about 20 different to-do apps in the last year. I have to-do spread all over the internet. Okay, so I'm seeing a lot of Excel. Interesting. Okay, so there's so the thing about project management tools, and especially when you start talking about them as being in the cloud. There's such a wide array. If I had asked people maybe what their favorite email tool was, or social media tool, or social media platform, or email platform, there aren't that many. Whereas there are so many different project management tools, and it becomes sort of a problem because you have coworkers who are using different tools and are used to different protocols. You might be working with another department that is using a different tool, or working with another organization that might be using different tools. And one point that I want to stress about project management is that in a lot of organizations, project management is seen as just the jurisdiction of the managers. But training on collaboration and how to work with those managers is very important and relevant to the majority of workers. And in a lot of cases, a manager ends up being a collaborator in another project as well, and that's a slightly different sort of competency. So the training required to be truly competent in project collaboration and management requires a lot of training on different tools, requires a lot of different soft skills training for, depending on where someone is in the project process. In a lot of cases, even someone who's used to just collaborating is still going to be delegating some tasks, is still going to be performing some management functions. So having competency across both of these things is very important. Okay, let's take a pop quiz. Are you looking at your phone right now? Please answer yes or no. Wow. How about that? Well,
that's a nice testament to how engaged people are with you.
That's very nice. Thank you all very much. All right, let's take 10 more seconds. All right, Gary, you wanna publish it?
Actually, we didn't use the polling tool for that since we used.
Oh, we didn't use the polling tool.
No, but
okay.
Just glancing at, I'll bet you, I'd say 90% of everybody said no.
90% of everyone said no. I'm actually gonna. I would say had we published it, I'm gonna assume that everyone who didn't respond is looking at their phones. Now, if I'd asked how many people have other tabs open or maybe doing a little bit of other work at some point during this webinar, I think we would have approached about 100%. And actually, I have I'm going to call out Caroline here, who's in the room here with me, and I can see that you are on your phone right now.
You know, Alex, I just noticed that a lot of people did use the polling tool. Thank you to them for that. Let's go ahead and put those up. Yep.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
There it is. 63%. 63% were on their phone. Wonderful. Okay, so this pertains to attention management, which we were talking about a little bit earlier. And I personally, I think this may be the most important digital skill of all because it's been so neglected and it's becoming more and more of an issue. So there's a research paper that I recommend everyone take a look at. I can send this along later with some resources. So it was published by the University of Florida and is called Hyper and Deep Attention, the Generational Divide in Cognitive Modes. And what research has found is that, and it seems kind of remarkable, it's that people are genuinely paying attention in a different way than they did in the past, and it seems to be cross-generational. So whereas in 1998 there was a study where the average attention span was clocked at about 12 minutes, we were down to about 5 minutes in 2008, and now we're down a lot lower in 2014. So in a world where attention is a precious resource, we may have to reconsider how we design training, and we also need to focus training on attention itself. So some of you mentioned focus, training on mindfulness is becoming very popular. You might notice that a lot of executives have started to write about the importance of mindfulness and meditation in their daily lives in order to actually accomplish work. Attention management bleeds into time management a little bit, and you might describe it as a way to prioritize thought, feeling, and effort. Great. And by the way, thank you all for the chats. I will actually personally go through these all, and I appreciate the participation. So let's take a poll and use the polling tool. What % of your work week do you spend reading, writing, or responding to email? So I'll reveal the actual answer. I'm interested in the answer that the average is, but I'm interested in what your estimates are. All right,
and all you folks that are typing in the chat, if you could use the polling tool up at the top of your participant list, we'd love to include you in the results. Just mouse over the A.
Thanks, Gary.
Yep. And would you like to see their answers?
Yes, please. Let's publish these.
All right.
Okay. Interesting. So the plurality, the most popular answer was C, 25 to 40%, which I'm glad that people are realists about how big of a problem this is. So the average that's been estimated by McKinsey and a few other institutions is that it's 28%. 28% of our time is spent reading, writing, and responding to email, which doesn't sound like the job description that anyone has, but it still ends up being such a huge chunk of the time we take up. And that's just one sub-element of communication. I just want to read this quote by Neil Gaiman. He's a science fiction fantasy writer who was giving a commencement speech a few years ago, and he commented, "There was a day when I looked up and realized that I had become someone who professionally replied to email and who wrote as a hobby." And I think as a result, he stopped he stopped writing emails so much. And if you look at his website now, he has a whole FAQ about how hard it is to get a hold of him. I think if you want to get Neil Gaiman to appear somewhere, he says you should call his agent, tell him you want Neil Gaiman to appear, have him tell you how much it costs, have him say it again in case you misheard it the first time, tell him you could get Bill Clinton for that money. So Neil Gaiman refuses to stop doing his job, which is potentially a stand we could all learn from. So let's dive in a bit deeper into the communication competency. So again, I'll point out the 28%. Now there are some great resources that I can recommend just now. So again, email is just a subcomponent of communication. There are many soft skills that are included, many other different types of tools, including VoIP, which some of you might be using right now. One of my favorite resources for email is Revive Your Inbox, which is a 21-day program developed by Baydin, B-A-Y-D-I-N, which is it's the company that makes Boomerang, which is actually a really great email tool if you want to check it out, that connects with Gmail and I think a couple of other services. Let me just point out again how big of a problem the communication competency is for most people. So in the sidebar, we spend more time, this is from McKinsey and IDC, we spend more time answering and responding to emails than we do communicating and collaborating with our coworkers or searching and gathering information. The only thing that takes more time is role-specific tasks, otherwise known as doing our actual job. Now, let me just point out that this is not an editorial written by someone as an opinion piece. This is from two of the largest research institutions in the world who were writing a research paper about the time we spend at work, and role-specific tasks was second to answering emails. Okay, let's move on to the next competency, which is digital etiquette. Now, digital etiquette is the responsibility of every employee. Now, in the sidebar here, we have some recent social media blunders by some well-respected organizations, but we're going to actually take a look at a more detailed etiquette case study later in this session. But I wanted to just remind everyone that this is indeed a core competency. Digital etiquette is something that if people run afoul of digital etiquette, even if they're not responsible for the official social media channels of the corporation, if they're just posting on their own social media channels, if they do something inappropriate, then that can come back to bite the company. All right. Now we're going to have my favorite. We're going to do my favorite interactive activity. This is another pop quiz. I want to test your search and research skills. You might have to minimize the webinar for this. Can someone tell me what kind of dog does Grovo co-founder Nick Narodny own? And the first person who gets this right will be sent a T-shirt of their choice. We have really nice T-shirts at Grovo. So the first person who answers this correctly, I'm gonna let a few more people respond here. Seems like we just have guesses here. Okay, we've had, all right, great. Now we have some correct answers. The first person to get it correct was, I believe, Mark A. And Mark, we will arrange to send you a T-shirt as soon as this session is over. So the answer is a Norwich Terrier. That's the very cute Walter right now. He's an office dog. On the right there, he's with my dog Wally. They're best friends. If you search for Nick Narodny dog and quickly skim through the search results on Google, for example, you might have noticed that in the preview text on one of the search results, someone asked him what kind of dog is that, and he responded #Norwich Terrier. So this brings us to the search and research competency. I want to focus on the sidebar here. So one thing I want to point out is that workers spend about 19% of their average work week searching for and gathering information, which is a lot. And things don't really get any better for millennials entering the workforce now. You would expect perhaps the digital natives who maybe grew up with Google and Wikipedia and other sorts of resources would have, pretty decent search skills, but as it happens, study after study shows that they don't. And this will continue to be a challenge as millennials enter the workforce. And of course, the generations that are already in the workforce have their own challenges with search and research. All right, let's go to our next.
I have a couple of questions for you on
Yes.
that when you get around to them, but do you mind if I throw one in right now?
Sure, please, yeah.
Why is that? Is that because of the assumption that's made that they already somehow are born with that knowledge, or is it for some other reason?
Why is it that?
Why is it a problem for millennials when it's millennials we would expect to learn that at an earlier age and be better at it?
So I think that the issue with millennials is that they are quite capable at using the tools, the mechanics of the tools, actually, like Googling something or finding something on Wikipedia, but the skills that they lack, some of the soft skills of identifying whether a piece of information is accurate or not, how many other sources they might need to look at to confirm that something is true. I think in a lot of cases it is a soft skills problem, but there are also operations that you can perform in some tools. So just taking Google as an example. So I think that a lot of people don't take advantage of using different modal operators for search, using or and, using minuses. So for example, if you want to eliminate some search results, you would put a minus in front of the keywords that you want to eliminate. There are more specific search tools like Google Scholar that might be more relevant to search for certain types of information. And I think that people are millennials and other generations in general are just unaware of the ecosystem that surrounds search and research tools and just generally all of the tools that we're discussing across the different competencies.
Well, great. Thank you. Sherry G has sent me that question on the back channel, and she appreciates your answer. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, let's move on to our next poll. Take a look around you, about a 5-foot radius. How many different internet-enabled devices are within 5 feet of you? So that's anything that can connect to the web: an iPhone, an iPad, a computer. Maybe if you have some wearable technology. Does anyone have wearable technology? A Fitbit? Okay, great. If you have a free moment later on, I recommend you look up Google Glass Photographer on YouTube. Grover made a comedy video that went viral, actually. We were very proud of it, so you can check that out. Okay, let's publish this. So 3 to 4 is the plurality. We have some people here who seem to be drowning. We have 13 people who seem to be drowning in devices. Please be careful. So this brings us to, this is relevant to the topic of platform flexibility. Now, even having 3 to 4 internet-connected devices around you, even a few years ago, that would have seemed like an enormous luxury. Why would I ever need that? But now it's becoming the norm. I mean, it's at the point where it's no one would begrudge you for having an iPhone and an iPad and a laptop and a desktop and all sorts of other things. So platform flexibility is becoming more and more of an issue as people start to bring their own devices into work. And some people work remotely, others work on the go. And the ability to accomplish the same sorts of tasks across a range of devices, operating systems, browsers, cloud platforms, it's becoming more and more of a requirement for conducting business smoothly. Okay, Great. So this is actually a bit of a formality. We don't have to do a poll for this, but I would venture to guess that almost everyone who's participating in the webinar right now has an account on more than one of these websites. These are some of the most popular sites in the world. And unfortunately, if you have an account, then even just within the last year, within the last few months, it's very likely that several of your passwords have been hacked. Now, you might have heard of the Heartbleed SSL leak that occurred a few months ago. eBay had a huge breach. Adobe had a huge breach. Just last week, I believe, you might have heard of Cybervore, where Russian hackers scooped up about 1.2 billion logins across all different sorts of sites, and I think it actually was not released, the names of the different sites and platforms that had been affected. But security and privacy is a huge concern and will become more so in the future. So I think a lot of people haven't really felt the sting of this yet. Your passwords might have been compromised. Maybe you got a few, phishing emails, but you didn't click on them. But this will become a bigger and bigger problem as hackers and other sorts of nefarious folks will figure out how to use compromised records to steal more money, be able to more easily steal an identity, and this is going to be a huge organizational problem, a huge problem in schools. So you see that information is being compromised at an ever faster rate. Also, the value of compromised information is getting higher and higher. So I think I saw a statistic that each compromised record is worth about $200 or so on average, and with each breach, thousands or sometimes millions of records are being compromised. So this is already costing organizations a lot of money. Now, if you've heard of the Internet of Things, which is basically smart devices, smart homes, smart smoke alarms, smart thermostats, and so forth, that's one of the next big waves of technology. If you think you have a problem now with someone maybe hacking into your email, just wait until somebody hacks into your shower and turns on the scalding water. Maybe does that en masse. You have everyone, yeah, your car, sure. Your car, how terrible would that be if all of a sudden a single person sees a vulnerability in a system and starts controlling people's cars. Imagine what kind of terrible commute that's going to be one day. So security and privacy is already an important competency now. Will only become more and more crucial as we go along. So before we actually take a look at the action plan, before we go through this, I'd like to pause again for any questions about anything that we've discussed thus far. So we've got a pretty good sense of the 8 core competencies. Do you want to talk about anything else?
I'll give people a few moments to put them in here.
Thank you.
We've had several requests for you to repeat the name of Boomerang, I think it was, unless you mentioned another one as well.
Yes. So I mentioned a couple of things. So the parent company of Boomerang, I think they're called Baydin, B-A-Y-D-I-N. They created a program called Revive Your Inbox, which I like a lot because it sends you an email every day telling you what to do with your inbox. And it discusses a different skill or a different tactic that you would take, and each one builds on the previous ones. And so after the 21-day period, your inbox should be completely clear. You will be at inbox 0, which doesn't last long, but it's sure nice to see once in a while.
And as you can see, Alex, Karen asked earlier, how can we test for attention management skills? I don't know if you want to talk about that now or separately, but I thought it was a good question.
Yes, so that is a good question. We are currently figuring out. So we're currently implementing this digital competency model into the product, and there will be assessments, so a skills gap assessment for each one of the competencies. And for attention management, I think that for all of their, whether the actual training helps you or not, I think that game websites such as Lumosity, Elevate is actually a really good one, but Lumosity specifically has a few games that are really good at testing focus and attention and assessing improvements in focus and attention.
And we had Mark A. asking, is Revive Your Inbox, is it Apple Mail compatible? So anybody who knows that maybe can answer, Mark.
I think that Revive Your Inbox has specific advice for different platforms, but I think that it's platform agnostic. A lot of the advice is platform agnostic, and actually as a piece of education, I think it's written really well. Very personable, a lot of really great examples, and as some of you may have seen, and Kathy, thank you for including that link. You don't need to go through the program with your email account. You can just look through each one of the different days on your own. Okay, let's continue into this action plan. And I just want to note that Grovo will be doing a future webinar where we go into each one of these steps in more detail. I don't want to make it seem like we're giving short shrift to this, but I did really want to emphasize how important those 8 core digital competencies are, because all of them matter and all of them are contributing to a sort of a quiet debt that's existing at all of our organizations. So you can treat this slide as a little cheat sheet for now. So the steps required to really start bridging the skills gap. The first thing we need to do is define the goals of the different departments in the business. That's a pretty standard step when we're defining training. Then we need to define the skills, and we take a competency-based approach because we want to connect the training to what we're actually doing at work. Especially task-based competencies. I really would like to advocate for this approach, and Grovo will also be doing future webinars on the competency model, how to create your own competency model, and why that's a really great approach to training. So within the framework of these 8 core digital skills, we define the professional skills, technologies, operations, assets required for each department to achieve its goals. Then you do some manner of skills assessment. Now, we had a question before about how do you assess some of these competencies. Self-reporting is always an option. You can have a manager or an admin, training administrator, try to assess the skills. The best way, though, is to have some sort of automated method. So a game is one example where there's not much subjectivity involved. You are really assessing someone's skills, and then you can track them as they get better at that activity. Then you design a training, and we'll talk about that a little more in a second. And then you set up to repeat. Now, I really want to emphasize this step 5 because as we've been talking about, the skills gap is insidious and it's continuous. It's something that we all need to be fighting against now and in the future. It doesn't just go away. Everyone here needs to keep being vigilant. Because if you do, let's say you do a great job of training on the competencies, you have one great training program in place. Let's say you get everyone on your team fully competent for a while, but then if you don't have a continuous program in place, you're inevitably going to fall behind the technology, and within a few months, even maybe, you're going to be basically in the same boat as people who have had no training at all, because the training that you've already done is no longer completely relevant to the competencies required given the new state of technology, which again is changing constantly. Okay. So I'd like to take a closer look at digital etiquette, which I said we would focus on here, and I would just like to illustrate the variety of training required and how important the whole training ecosystem is in order to truly train someone on these digital competencies. And let's just take digital etiquette as an example here. So here we have two social media crises that were dealt with in different ways. On the left-hand side, we have the American Red Cross. So have you seen these examples before, by the way? I know that the Red Cross one is a popular one in various blog posts about social media crisis management. So you'll notice that there was an off-brand tweet that was delivered through Hootsuite about finding some beer and people getting slizzard. So clearly highly off-brand for an organization like the American Red Cross, a health organization. They subsequently apologized. Then they said that they deleted the rogue tweet, but rest assured the Red Cross is sober and we confiscated the keys. So they kind of owned up to the mistake, and they apologized in a comical and on-brand way. On the right-hand side, we have here two tweets from a social media disaster that the retail company called HMV. It's based in the UK. So a disaster that they experienced. So what happened is they laid off a bunch of workers, but forgot that those workers had access to all of HMV's social media accounts. So a few of the rogue employees took over those official accounts. They locked out the management and gave them a bit of a social media lesson. So this was actually a whole series of tweets, one of which it ends with, "I hope that today's actions would finally show them the true power and importance of social media, and I hope they're finally listening." This was delivered as the management at HMV was helplessly watching this happen and was locked out of their social media accounts. In response, though, HMV simply deleted the tweets, but only after there was already a lot of media attention that had been generated, and then never apologized or acknowledged the issue. So, how do we ensure that we be more like the Red Cross than like HMV in this instance? So, the training that's required to avoid this kind of mess, the organization needs to know the tools. So, you need to actually use Twitter. In a lot of cases, there are social media blunders that are created, especially on Twitter, because someone meant to send a direct message, but they accidentally tweeted it out to everyone. So you need to have it in your muscle memory, because social media, and by the way, this is just a subsection of digital etiquette, social media etiquette. Even if we just focus on that, I do want to illustrate how important the competency is and how important it is to have a robust program in place to train on it. So you need to know the tools. Then you need to have platform flexibility across the different tools. So some people are using social media on their iPhone, some are using it on a different mobile device, some are using it on a tablet, desktop, etc. Then you have soft skills training on how to avoid the social media blunders to begin with, but then also how to react in a crisis situation once it happens. Then maybe you also have social media monitoring tools to quickly identify if there's a problem. And you need operations in place to react quickly enough. So someone might identify the correct thing to do, but they may need to go through a channel of approval before they can actually post something. Are they aware of that channel? And so there are issues with operations. You can have a plan intact, but if you don't have the training on the plan is functionally useless. Now imagine you committed the same social media blunder across a bunch of different sites, or there's a reason, there's some news story your organization needs to react quickly and wants to get the message across. So you might have a social media management tool, which is different than the monitoring tool, perhaps. So something like Hootsuite, which would allow you to post widely to all of your social networks at once. Then you need to make sure that every single person is aware of all of these different protocols, of how to use all of these different tools, knows all of the operations, and so forth. So you need this to be a really wide program. And all in all, you have tools, you have soft skills, you have operations, you might have some assets that are required to look through before you actually respond, and all of those things need training. So just in order to be confident, look at how many things need to come together. So I wanted to look at that to really, really emphasize how hard it is to do this well, and how important it is to have a formal program in place to make it happen. It's really easy for minor mistakes and minor breakdowns to cost you a lot. So what I'd like to do right now before we continue is I'd like to get some of your key insights. You've all been so helpful throughout the webinar thus far, participating. If you could just list some of the insights in the chat, and if you can, please articulate them fully. Be as detailed as you can, and then at the end I'll just highlight a few to recap. But this would be really helpful for us. So just take a couple minutes. Gary, how are we doing with time? We have about...
we got about 8 minutes here. We can go a couple of minutes over, Alex. Fine. People are really doing a nice job. Sarah, good job on articulating these thoughts. If you can put down more than 2 or 3 words, but a sentence would be great. Excellent.
I'm reading through these now, and they're great. Thank you all. Gary, do you want to pick a few to highlight and
there's so many good ones, but I just think a good sampling is right here, and I'll put them up. Maybe you want to comment on them at all. I'll try to enlarge them. There
sure.
And Marlo, every 100% of everybody that applies to.
Great. I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad that there's some of the competencies have resonated in different ways with some people. I think it's important that we do identify the really all of the different ones, because it helps us crystallize what the skills gap problem is, and it helps us, it allows us to create a plan of action to actually attack them. Because without the different competencies, you end up having this general problem, and it becomes kind of too big of a mess. Yeah, let me call out some of these.
And there's quite a bit of a number of requests for more information about, or discussion about, ideas about, all kind of research about attention management. So you really sparked an interest in that.
Great. Is there so actually what we can do, and I'm going to look through the chat and try to suss out some of the themes, some of the requests, and potentially Grovo can, I can personally send along some additional resources for some of the things that you were interested in. Also, very important, Mark A, you get a T-shirt. So please stick around, or we'll find you in some way. I'll make sure you get it.
So Mark, you can mouse over my name and send me a private chat, and I'll make sure that it gets to Alex and the good folks at Grovo. And Alex, let me interrupt you here for a moment. We had a couple of people asking, can we copy or save the chat? You can copy the chat by using Control-C, or you can save the chat, and I'll put the instructions in here again right now. You can save the chat like that. Just go up to File and Save and Chat. A lot of good discussion there. I would want to save the chat if I were you, that's for sure.
Yeah. And as far as attention management goes, Grovo is building an attention management competency and curriculum, and I really think that a lot of other content providers are going to catch on to that soon on the importance. I know in a lot of organizations you might have one-off sessions. Someone comes in, might teach mindfulness and meditation, but I think it's getting to the point where it really needs to be part of people's daily training, daily lives, to really focus their attention. Great. Okay, let's just continue into a quick recap. So this is more of a, again, you can use this as a little bit of a cheat sheet. Gary and Training Mag will be sending over a more detailed PDF version of this webinar with some more data. And we'll also be in touch with some more data. And again, I'll look through and assess what other sorts of resources people are looking for. But just to recap, we have this enormous macro problem that's costing the U.S. economy $1.3 trillion a year, costing other developed nations and other sorts of nations around the world even more than that. At individual firms, we're losing $1 million per 10,000 employees. we have these 8 core digital skills. I would love to hear we would love to hear feedback on these. We really believe in this digital competency model. As I mentioned, it's going to grow and expand as the skills grow and expand. And we are also creating competency models for each of the other core functions at an organization, so sales, social media, online marketing, customer service, and so forth. But for each one of those workers, they still need that core set of digital competencies in order to even do their more specific job-focused tasks. Then just a quick recap of the plan of action: defining goals, skills, assessing those skills, designing training, and setting up to repeat. And as I mentioned, we will be focusing more on this action plan in subsequent webinars, and you'll be receiving more about it in email. So I would like to ask if there are any other final questions. I'd love to do a little bit of a Q&A here with the time that we have left. And then otherwise, if you'd like to contact me directly, please get in touch, akurgan@grovo.com. To learn more, just click that link, grovo.com/organizations. Tells you a little bit more about how our platform works, about our content, the science behind Grovo, and if you go to our About page, you can you learn more about the company, the people who are here. We have a really great team here. Am I on Twitter? So I would suggest that you follow Grovo's Twitter account, which the handle is @Grovo. And we are currently working on a new idea for the blog that we'll see in place within a few months. But for now, Twitter is a great way to follow us. So is Facebook.
So we have another question by Steve up here. So
great, thank you, Steve.
I don't know if
how do you implement digital change in a structured hierarchy, such as a bank that has a rigid framework? Is it as simple as following today's plan? So the action plan as outlined is malleable. It's malleable to the requirements and needs of the organization. I would say that if there's a rigid framework and a hierarchy, the training plan can be built around that, but the most important thing is that you just have a program that focuses on all of the right competencies, that does it in a holistic way. So that means focusing on the tools that are required, focusing on the soft skills, all the different sorts of soft skills that are required to actually use those tools effectively, focusing on operations and training around the operations, focusing on the different assets that a worker in a particular role who's exhibiting that competency might need. And as long as the content is included, then a training program can fit into all sorts of different hierarchies and still be successful.
Good, thank you. And I'll enter Trent's question. Trent, we always post all of the archived webinars at the top of our archive page, and I'll give you a link to it in the chat right now. So you'll be able to find this one there at the top of this page tomorrow morning. Or maybe even later on today. We'll also send you a note about that. It seems like a good time, Alex, to thank you and Grovo very much for doing the webinar. We know how much time and energy it takes, and you certainly put it in there and brought us a lot of great insights from your experience with learning design and with your research. So thank you very, very much. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with us before we sign?
I would just like to thank you, Gary. I'd like to thank Training Magazine. Most of all, for I know some of the participants who were active have already left, but I'd like to thank all of you for participating. I really appreciate you taking this time. I know you're all very busy. I know how big the digital skills gap, how big of a problem it is, such that you might not even have time for this webinar. But I very much appreciate that each of you made it out. Thank you.
I am sure we're going to have a lot of people looking at the recording, and I think this comment by B-Day has done it really sums it up. It's eye-opening, really eye-opening, and we appreciate you bringing our attention to all of this, and hopefully you'll help us out on that attention management later. So thank you again to Grovo again for sponsoring and underwriting today's webinar, and we'll look forward to having you back in the future, Alex. Hope we can we count on that?
You can count on it. Thank you, Gary.
All right, great. And thanks to Christine and everybody else who worked on this webinar, and to everybody who's taken time out of your week to attend. Again, the recording will be available tomorrow. And don't miss the webinars tomorrow with Judy Hale, and later this week also with the Online Learning Conference webinars. Have a great week, everybody. Alex, have a great day, and we look forward to seeing you all again very, very soon.